A couple of weeks ago, Shirley and I returned from some travel. We were in Holden Village and came home via Alaska. And among the very first pieces of mail that we saw was the letter from our council chair, Gene Fjellstead, that told that our building debt had been paid in full by a generous bequest. I was so excited. I called Shirley, "Shirley, listen to this, you won't believe it." And I started to read the letter, and I choked up and could not finish. I was so moved. I was so grateful. The news could not have come without all of you and your gifts, prayed on to be adequate. That news could not have come from some small and several very large bequests, and the news could not have come without the grace of God. To God be the glory. Someone else that rejoices with us today is our former pastor, Mark Halverson, who sent a letter that I'm honored to read. It went to Pastor Brian Scott and members of First Lutheran. Karen and I were overjoyed with the news that your building loan with Thrivent was paid off. What a powerful milestone. The whole renovation and expansion program that you undertook was amazing. You blended the historical beauty of your facility with the ever-changing needs of a dynamic community and ministry. I feel privileged to have served First Lutheran at the time of construction. Under the capable leadership of Pastor Brian, you now have an increased opportunity to move ahead in ministry and mission. As your congregation grows and changes, as your vision for ministry continues to unfold, new generations of Christians will both be served and have the opportunity to serve through your presence in the Red Wing community. A verse from Paul's letter to the Ephesians says it so well. Give thanks to God the Father at all times and for everything in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. May your celebration and ministry continue to embrace this kind of spirit. Our thoughts and prayers remain with you. Mark and Karen Halverson. But you know, it was more than a new building. There were many, many other projects that were woven in with and under what we have talked about as our building project. In the chapel, for instance, new windows, new pews, an enlargement when the altar was moved to the front. And in this space, flexible, new, open, new furniture using all of those hand-carved symbols that were almost hidden before. New paraments, our old ones were worn out even if we hadn't received new furniture. An enlarged and modernized pipe organ. Window repair with storm windows. That alone cost over $100,000. A new furnace, air conditioning. And I think my favorite story was what happened, or almost happened. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Our altar, one day when the workers were there, I don't remember doing what, in front of that huge wooden reredos, that whole wooden reredos began to fall. And the worker was there in exactly the right place at the right time, or that would have crashed to the floor in 100 pieces and he would have been under it. It had never been attached to the wall. And when that was being done, it was discovered that some of the panels on either side of the altar, the wood panels, were rotten. And they were copied and put back, and I venture to say from where you're sitting, you cannot tell the new from the old. I even looked this morning up there and can't tell the difference. There's a book someplace with some pictures that maybe shows this. Let that be a symbol to us of all that has been done, much more than a building. And we even reached out with the gospel. We underwrote some ministry in North Las Vegas, and even though we were saddened when that did not result in a brand new congregation, there were many people touched with the gospel, baptisms and confirmations, so that the congregations in the greater Las Vegas area all benefited from our building project. And that's not an easy place to grow the church, let me tell you. And we also gave generous scholarship support to an Hispanic woman studying at Southern Seminary and a young man from the Middle East studying at the Lutheran Seminary in Philadelphia. A new building, many improvements, many projects. Thanks be to God. Now that's my introduction to the sermon. 3 points, actually a conclusion. Can we learn from these generous people that included First Lutheran Church in their estate plans and go and do likewise? And put First Lutheran Church in our will so that someday in the future, at a service much like this, we can be remembered for our generosity. And second, this is not the time to fold our hands and say, we did it, it's done. It's the time to build mission and ministry. The gospel for today talked about the light, being the light of the world, and that there is a city on a hill, the light cannot be hid. Well, we have a church on a hill and a high steeple, and beautiful lighting in the evening hours and throughout the night. But that's not enough. The gospel says you, not the city, not the church, not the steeple, are the light. And besides that, if you think we're done, all you need to do is go outside and look at our steeple and see the need for paint. We have an old building, it's an historic building, it's going to continue to be expensive and it's going to be worth maintaining. Now, the painting will be done as part of the bequests also that hasn't been woven into all of the extras that we've been talking about. And finally, and most important, let's remember that God's grace and goodness continues at all times and in all places. It's easy to see today. Some days, in the midst of challenge and pain and hardship, it's not so easy to see. It's always with us. God is gracious and good at all times and in all places. Thank you.